Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of ABM Answered, the quickfire Demand Gen ABM video series, or at least that's what we aim for. I'm here with Vasileios today, who can introduce himself in a second, but to give a short overview of the concept of this series, Vasileios, in this case, will be given 7 questions to respond to, all about account-based marketing or demand generation. These questions have come from or have been based on the data we've collected at Mixed Reality Rooms, where we've had over 1,000 marketers go through an experience and state what their biggest headaches are at the moment with Demand Gen and ABM. So yes, Vasileios, I will hand it over to you to give an introduction.
Thanks, Sam. I'm Vasileios, or a lot of people know me by Vas, the short version of it. I am the EMEA Regional Marketing Manager for Bugcrowd, the crowdsourced security. And yeah, I look forward to answer those 7 questions. I've known Sam, I think, for good 4 years now. So I'm happy to help this ABM Answered series to gain a little bit more following.
Awesome, yeah. Been a roller coaster for a few years, that's for sure. We'll jump straight in. The first problem that came in or that's come up is identifying the right target accounts. So the question, I guess, to flip it on its head is, what process do you follow in identifying your target accounts? How long does it take? And does that evolve throughout the year? Or do you stick with one set of target accounts typically for the full year period?
It's a great question, and it's critical, right? You need to understand, especially, consider I'm in my new role now, 4 days in. You need to sit down and understand from a lot of people in the company that are more experienced or where your sweet spot lies. So you need to find out certain verticals that work for you, certain company sizes, and a good product fit. So with that, I think you also need to have a plan B in mind, because you have, outside factors, the macroeconomic environment, or even wars that we're currently sadly seeing happening around us in the world. So with that, I would say take a lot of time, understand your customers, your buying personas, and geographies that you want to target, and then do your plan, and again, run it again and again, test it with more experienced colleague of yours that have been there for a while, and make sure that you have a plan B in place.
Nice. And in terms of just a bigger marketing strategy at the moment, so without needing to go into specifics, are you typically seeing within kind of Bugcrowd, I know it's very early days, or like other companies that you've worked at previously, during kind of these market times, the target accounts are more based on expanding existing customers, or is it still very much focused on acquiring net new logos? Or do you have 2 separate lists?
It varies per company and per the size of your employer. There are certain companies focused on enterprise software, long-term deals that go over years, versus your typical SaaS in the software space, where it's a 12-month rolling contract, and you could focus on smaller size of companies. So when that is the case, I think net new logo is a focus. You need volume, and you need to operate on a very transactional basis. You run your campaigns, you convert a lot faster, very short sales cycles, versus your enterprise software. The sales cycle is longer. However, the long, multi-year contracts with a big annual recurring revenue and total contract value of deals can allow for more sophisticated marketing, more planning ahead, more experiential aspects.
Okay, splendid. Next question, or next problem. Content creation for our key accounts was the statement that came in. So how do you typically approach this?
It's a really nice problem, especially with the resurgence of Gen AI in the last year and how it helps with content generation. By the way, anyway, I can take it offline about this with you. But yes, I think when it comes to content creation, you need to take your time and you need to spend extra for every single target of yours, whether you are targeting a vertical, whether you're targeting a specific country. And let's say, for example, if it's banking in Greece, you have 5 to 10 banks. So you have a very well defined market. So you can prepare very, very well and know each of them, their strengths and weaknesses, where you can help them with your offering, your solution, or your product. So I would say, count again on experienced content authors, whether you have them internally, whether there is an agency to support you. You can play yourself with the likes of generative AI solutions without naming products to generate both written and also visual content for you, and then adapt it and personalize it. Again, the experiential aspect, as you know yourself, is so important and
Mhm.
goes a long way. And at the end of the day, when you're ready, you deliver an experience that matters and it's memorable, and all your efforts, all the preparation for putting that content together bears fruits.
Nice. And at what point do you, because obviously there are different tiers within ABM, you've got your one to one, one to many, one to few, but at what point do you decide to kind of go hyper personalized on you as an organization, determine it's now worth it to build out a specific one to one report? Like you mentioned, that example of you might have five, six banks within kind of Greece. So you can build kind of a relevant but somewhat generic report still, which will still resonate. Do you kind of wait for intent signals or like some feedback signals before you dive into doing one-to-one reports, or do you sometimes jump into going, hey, we're going after Microsoft, they're going to be a huge account for us, so let's just invest in this in one-to-one personalization from the offset?
I think you need to be flexible. You need that level of agility where you make your plan at the beginning of a financial year. You also sit down with your superiors, let's say your vice president of sales or the general manager for the territory, for the continent, and say, okay, I want to focus on Central Europe, or I want to focus on the retail sector in France. And halfway through the year, you realize that for A, B, or C reason, you don't get the intent signals, you're not ready, you don't want to wait so much, so you adapt. So you have to have that on the back of your head. And again, the moment where you can go hyper personalization, it's very, very relevant to who you go after. Irrespective of the territory, if you go after a G2K, whatever you call the listed companies that are household brands that are very well known and they have the budget to spend for whatever product or service you're selling,
Mhm.
they deserve the hyper personalization and the additional extra marketing dollars you want to spend to see that return at the end of the day.
Okay, nice, nice. Very detailed answer. Problem three, which kind of ties into this actually, would is personalization at scale. So this is like one of the most common problems or headaches that come in. So we just kind of touched upon that, but would you like to add anything more? Like what strategies or approaches have you seen work well, and also what not work so well? I guess is a great question too.
The whole statement, I remember reading that question, the whole statement, personalization at scale, those 3 words are the most ridiculous oxymoron ever. You can't personalize something and put it on a production line. It loses the element of personalization. I mean, obviously, you can, and there are various options out there to churn out. Let's say, I want to have a personalized landing page for what I offer plus that account. You still need to spend a little bit more time to make it personalized. By sticking someone's logo and colors doesn't mean you personalize something. Everybody can do it these days. So personalization at scale doesn't work. You can adapt something to give it the look and feel of your recipient to make it look familiar for them, But for me, personalization means that you take the time, you read, company reports, annual accounts, you read about them in the news, what they post online, and especially if you target specific personas, you also want to do your private investigation, right? Your market research, know everything that there is to be before you go after them with your marketing and sales tactics.
Yeah, I remember having this conversation with you in the pub. Actually, it was the first time I kind of ever asked anyone that this challenge came up, and the way I framed, you framed it, or the way I took it away was, yeah, you can't. There's no like hidden gem tool. Like if like one account rep has got 20 accounts that they need to look after, the solution here is to hire more account reps to like keep it relevant or personal. And it's simple, but it just makes so much sense. Like if the math adds up and it works, it seems that would be the best way to go. On the research and reporting, so I didn't really know too much about the space until maybe 6 months ago when I had my first kind of conversation with an ABM agency that specifically does the research. What they do is, Microsoft might release a massive 60, 100-page report, which no sales team or marketing team really have the time to kind of go through. And this agency's value add is to summarize that report for them and do all that groundwork for you on your behalf. Do you typically see within organizations, and this is more of a personal question, you as the company doing that research, or do you outsource that research to an agency like this on your behalf?
I don't think I have an answer because I always found that research there, right? There are dedicated teams, at least in previous roles, and I think there is a dedicated individual that is in charge of, competitive research or market insights. And I think you have to use both, right? You have to have internal knowledge if your company has been around for a while and you can base that experience on, what you've been through. But there are also reports out there. And like you mentioned, there's a paper from Microsoft. You could have analyst reports from Gartner or Forrester. And you can also have agencies, like you can commission somebody specifically to do a survey for you based on 100 or 200, a good sample number for
Mm-hmm.
your personas, and get a most up-to-date version of the truth. But there is no perfect answer, and I don't think I'm 100% qualified to give you a good one.
No worries. Okay, problem four. Again, these are all kind of tying in quite nicely, but enough interaction from users. So you could take this many ways, but the way I guess I interpret it is whatever the play or strategy you're using, are there any kind of tips or things you do to encourage that interaction from your target accounts to engage with kind of content or to have a call with the sales team?
Yeah, I think it's a carrot and a stick situation. You need to offer them something to put them in front of your demo, right? The whole point was let's book a demo, let's book a meeting, but you also need to give them a carrot. So you need to offer them an experience at the end of the day, give them something for their time. So have an experience in your personal, day-to-day business. You offer an experience where there is gamification in it, there is learning. So people come with the expectation to be just another demo, but you kind of wow them. So if you go the extra mile to offer something for their time, I think it will increase the adoption, it will increase the interaction, and people will leave with a smile at the end of your meeting. So that you need to make it a happy experience for them.
That's what it's all about. I think you also said this to me as well. When they're ready, you can't really necessarily force someone to buy, but like if you leave them like happy or with like positive emotions in them, when they are ready to buy, they're going to come to you first. On the leaving them with something to in return for their time, obviously the first thing that comes to mind is gifting and direct mail. In your experience, has this worked for you? What's worked and what hasn't? I've got loads of kind of my theories on this, but yeah, I'd just like to hear from you what your experience with that's been.
Yeah, I think it's fairly common now, right? 2024, gifting and swag is the common reward for, going through an experience. And it may not be as impactful as it was like 3 4 years ago, because it's becoming more and more saturated. I think it's the feeling of a community, especially, let's say you do something for an account that is huge and you're trying to upsell across continents or departments. So you need to give them a feel of a community, and start building the community where they can learn from each other. So you offer an experience and you offer a product that everybody can adopt and use and increase, the interactions. But at the same time, gifting and swag was always something physical, something tangible, whereas the
Mhm.
community is again the same, but from a different perspective. So you build that community, and people move all the time. So you still have those relationships, and you can see it from the level that us, me and you are, on the ground in the field. So you can pick each other's brain for ideas on what works and what doesn't. But we can also, on a C level, if you build a community of CXOs, whatever their profession, they will leverage that to be on boards for, non-director roles, and they can leverage it for building a brand for themselves, speak at events, and create a name for themselves in the industry.
Nice. So that's interesting. You're seeing like the physical gifts. Obviously, they work. Who doesn't like receiving brownies in the post, kind of thing? But like, it's kind of been beaten to death. It still works as a good short term play to kind of capture attention, but like the real value add for providing to your kind of prospects and your target accounts is kind of giving them that platform, that community that's actually serves them longer term value rather than just kind of that short term sugar buzz, I guess, in some cases.
Absolutely, 100%.
Nice. Uh, Problem five is adapting to account changes. So I guess there's lots of different. The question would be like, experience this, and if so, how do you deal with this? I guess there's two ways to look at it. There's like more of a micro and a macro. It's like if people move roles, like your prospects within the account, or do you kind of future proof the deal? Like, do you kind of engage multiple stakeholders? And then like there's the macro, which is like if they get bought out, merge, or get acquired, do you write that account off, or do you keep trying to sell into them?
It's a difficult one. I remember when reading that question that it's an answer that can go a long way, right? We can talk about this forever. At the end of the day, it can be out of your hands, especially
Mm-hmm.
when you're talking about an acquisition, merger and acquisition, and you're at the bottom end. So easily your product can be disregarded straight away, or your whole marketing sales cycle to be ended because the company acquiring have another option and you're not being considered anymore. I think with the first element where someone moves and you need to find a new stakeholder to continue your conversation from a marketing and sales perspective, I think it's a little bit, there's still hope with that one.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're lucky enough, you have the place where your original champion lands as another opportunity to find a new deal. So you just need to stick to your guns, do what you do best, and believe in your product and your tactics, your efforts, and keep at it.
Nice. I love that. You've got a positive attitude rather than a doom and gloom attitude. Two opportunities, not one. Uh, we experienced both of these in the last year, and what personally found is if a kind of if we it was early days and we were only working with like one champion within an organization and they move, it's still a very nice in to say whoever replaces them in that role, we can then reach out to them and say, oh, we were very early days, but we were working with your, it's not successor, the previous person that was currently in the role. And they're just curious to hear what it is and more open to it if we were already working with it. And then likewise, when they move, you've kind of got that in as well. And then also we've had deals been shut down by big enterprise clients because they get bought out. And it's a bit of a kick in the teeth, but I think, like you said, it's slightly out of your control, isn't it? There's only so much you can do. For us, I guess the only way to really disqualify them though is like kind of getting that feedback. So for us, we were left in like the dark for 6 months, and maybe that's just bad kind of following up or marketing. But when they were merging or like behind closed doors, they weren't allowed to talk about it, which was kind of frustrating. Is there any kind of other disqualification metrics that you use? Like I did another one of these interviews, and they were like, we very rarely disqualify a target account. Like if we've labeled them as a good target account, it's not really a case of disqualifying them. It's a case of just keep going until they become a customer. Like in your instance or experience, would you ever disqualify a target account? And if so, on what criteria?
Well, you can always disqualify them. It's about the intel you collect. So there are, in various companies I've been, there was a number of calls or interactions. So if you exhausted all of them with all the personas that you're after, you mark the account as, disqualified, as you mentioned. If you try 10, 20 times per persona and you don't get anywhere, you have to give up. Another way you disqualify the account is when you speak to them, when you demo to them, and you propose to them something and they don't buy it, or they commit with another solution, another option. Then again, you disqualify it for at least 12 months, depending how much you know of the deal designed, whether it's a 12-month contract or a longer term deal. So yeah, I think the sooner you find out the state, the better. You shouldn't wait for a long time to disqualify. If you count the number of touches that you do as a marketer, SDR, or field seller, just keep calm and carry on, write it off, move on to the next. I think the market is big, irrespective of what your play is, whatever industry, and there will be another account to target.
Yeah, I think that's something I've really struggled with. The deeper like I've got into this, and like we're 4 years in now, and then before that, I was kind of in the same space working with marketing teams. Um, and by my very nature, I'm quite stubborn. Like I found like, wait, you don't want us? Like it makes me want you even more, or like I'll like that's money. I don't want to lose the kind of money. There's so many scale ups. You just don't know how big the market is, and a lot of these scale ups have the budget for your solution. And as soon as I kind of framed it like that, I've become much more ruthless in my disqualification because it is wasted time otherwise. We're flying through. So problem 6, the last one is measuring the ROI of cool MarTech solutions. I remember when this one came in. It's from a account-based marketing director at Autodesk, I think. So we were very excited to kind of pitch them. But yeah, what metrics are most important to you? And do you give a timeline of when you expect to see results?
Great question. You always measure. You can't do something and put your finger up in the air and say it works or it doesn't. So there is a number you can track. The new business, right? You can track what closes and what doesn't, and then in addition to whatever it is marketing sourced, whether it's this new cool martech that you say you need to measure, you also measure the influence. And again, there are a lot of marketing influenced models in there, various companies that are using. So you can have the even distribution 20%, let's say divide 5 steps and you get 20% on every step, and you can count the influence of your martech solution or whatever program tactic you deploy. And I would personally try to avoid the lead terms, whether you call them marketing qualified leads or sales qualified leads. It's a vanity number at the end of the day. It's quantity versus quality. So if you measure, because all companies are measured at the bottom line, revenue, profit and loss and all that. So you need to measure the deals won or deals lost. How many of those were sourced by your marketing product or martech solution, and how many of those you're influenced at what level. So you can influence X amount of new business, or you can source a Y amount of new business. Then you can calculate it against the amount you spend, and you've got your ROI there.
So you're seeing that more then. There's less of the kind of surface level MQLs or metrics, and more companies are focused. As a marketer, I'm more focused on like the attribution points I'm picking up along the revenue cycle. Is that
No, I think there are. I think every single company thinks with MQLs or leads in mind because they want to do a top-down, bottom-up calculation. So when I get to an X number of revenue, how many qualified opportunities we need from how many leads? They have a model of a ratio of lead to opportunity to win or loss, and they need to calculate those numbers so they can spend their marketing dollars, their investment somehow. So you may need to, you may feel that you need to do that, but I think it's best to work on a focused basis and take a little bit more time on your targeting and the solutions you deploy, the tactics, and the whole strategy. But you will get much better results. You will get the numbers that are not vanity numbers, that are actual dollars.
okay? Okay. The final question, Vasileios, and this might be actually my favorite question that's ever been asked, because it's just pure fun and speculation. If the sky, and this was asked by Emily York Golney, who was our previous guest, she said, if the sky's the limit in terms of budget, what would be your best in class recommendation for a marketing activity or integrated marketing and sales campaign to prospect for new business?
Again, I slept on this. It's a great question from Emily. Emily, you said, right?
Yeah, Emily.
So yeah, I think I would go all out and do an integrated campaign, let's say targeting a specific. And again, I don't know why it goes back to banks. Let's say we're here in the UK, in London, right? You've got Canary Wharf, you've got the big buildings, certain bank names that we won't mention, and you want to target one of them. So it
Yeah.
would be a full-blown integrated campaign, digital, physical, direct mail, even stands at the building, elevator advertising, what have you. What were those things called where you have people dancing all of a sudden in someone's lobby,
Oh, well,
wearing
like a flash mob.
flash mob, right? So you can do a full blown campaign on a specific account, one account for one deal, but that account can be like a massive company. Let's say you can do your number one company. Let's say what is it called? The big four: Facebook, Amazon, Apple. You can find their headquarters, go there, and in addition to your digital and digital targeting and physical direct mail gifting strategy, include those other out of the box ideas. Not flash mob, but you know what I mean. You can have elevator advertising, people on the floor, people wearing your mixed reality room colors and t-shirts all over, so you're top of mind all the time, and then you're there with your proposal at the right time when they're ready. But I think this could be like in a there is no scenario in Emily's questions that this ever happens, right? You will never have unlimited budget to do something, but that could be a really good campaign that everybody could be talking about.
Well, I think you know you've made it if someone sends you a flash mob, don't they? A personal flash mob to kind of capture your attention. Or it could be like a Now You See Me. I don't know if you've seen the film where is it Woody Harrison? He just like whispers in the person's ear over like a 6 week period, and like when they're just walking by, and like psychologically like they've been brainwashed over 6 weeks to have a demo with Bugcrowd. I don't know. That sounds very unethical though. But yeah, I guess you could take that many different ways. Okay, well, thank you very much for playing, I guess. And yeah, hope to chat soon.
Thank you.